Hello and welcome to this video where we talk about international SEO and how you can dominate international markets and what kind of domain names you should choose. So let's start by talking about what markets could be a good fit for your brand. I have come up with a few countries here and looked at their purchasing power. The countries in blue here are in Europe. And that's helpful because you might be able to consolidate your shipping. In case you're shipping a physical product, you probably don't want to ship it across the world. If you can have one hub inside of Europe and ship it to all these countries, that could be a really good idea. So here we can see the purchasing power per country. United States is leading by far, and this is essentially the money that households are spending each year. This data is from 2023. And it's in millions of USD. We can see here that I've put United States as the benchmark, meaning that I've compared all other countries to that. So India essentially has 13% of their household consumer spending power that the US has. And then you've got Japan and Germany leading with about 11 and 12% there. So when you're doing international SEO, in particular for e-commerce where you need to ship products, you want to make sure that it's worth it and that the country where you're going to go has enough purchasing power to support your brand. The other consideration with that is, of course, competition. The higher the purchasing power, usually the more competitors are there already, and we'll look at that in a second as well. So let's say we've decided we want to sell into Germany. Now the question is how we're going to do that in terms of our domain name. Here I've put a list with a few options. So here are some real examples as well. For example, Gymshark is actually using this option here for their website. Let me highlight that for us. So Gymshark is using the subdomain option where they have DE, which stands for Germany, and then gymshark.com. And we talk about the advantages later. But for now, we just go through these options here. Another option is to have a local country level domain name. In Germany, they use .de for their local domains. That means you can only target one country with that because you couldn't rank with that domain name in the US. Then we have another option where we have a .com domain name. However, we've got a word inside of the domain that only Germans know, which would again limit us to only one country. And that also happens quite frequently that people choose this route. So I wanted to mention that. And then lastly, we haven't talked about the subfolder option yet. This is something that is recommended and used by some companies, which is where you use your main domain, something.com, and then you do a subfolder .de for Germany, another subfolder .fr for France, for example, and so on. And then all the different pages would be under that folder for a specific language. So I wanted to show here what the official documentation or official person from Shopify says about it. They recommend a subdirectory approach where you would have a folder /.fr for France, for example, because they're saying your domain juice or backlink power can then be distributed to those subfolders. Whereas if you start with a subdomain or you create a completely different domain for that country, then you start essentially completely from scratch. And that's true. But on the other hand, let's look at what people are actually doing in the search results. So whenever we want to rank, it's important to check what actually ranks in the search results that we want to go into. So here we've got an example from Germany where we've got German CPU rankings, and we can see that we've typed in Intel CPU kaufen, which means to buy an Intel CPU, and of course very competitive. And the websites that are ranking here are brands that have been around in Germany for, I want to say, the last 10 to 20 years even. So you can see they're very old brands. I myself have actually purchased from them all the way back 20 years ago when I was living in Germany. So we can kind of note here that the main ranking factor might be the actual brand strength, and which is accumulated over a long time. So in some cases, the advice that you have to go with a subfolder directory for your international SEO might be completely irrelevant, because when it comes to actually ranking, it's up to the ranking factors that matter the most. And if the brand strength is the main ranking factor, and you're just starting out as a completely fresh brand in Germany, you're not going to rank no matter what, essentially. And in either case, you would be starting from scratch in many ways, whether you're creating a completely new domain or not. But I would suggest, if I had a German client that wants to go into the German CPU market, to go with a completely new domain name, because that's simply what's ranking for this keyword. And it just makes the SEO that much easier when we can have something that's already established and ranking already. We also have here French gymwear, similar situation for French gymwear where only the local French TLDs are ranking, .fr here in the end. And then we have Gymshark also ranking with their subdomain. So it's not impossible to come in into the top 5, but Gymshark is a huge brand worldwide, so would be also very competitive to rank for that. Here we have another interesting example in France, also for buying an Intel CPU. This is for used in French, the keyword. And we can see here that we've got the example where they have set up international domain names, but the actual name inside of the domain is French. So here we've got Monsieur Cyberman, for example, clearly a kind of French domain. And if we visit these pages, we can also see that using our hreflang checker, we can see that they have no language tags in place, no hreflang tags. That means that they're only targeting one language. And you can install this extension as well. I think it's called hreflang checker. And you can easily see if they're using hreflang tags and also if they implement it correctly. So that's another idea to consider, that you could set up a domain name not using the country level domain, but a country level word, a French word, if you will, in the domain name, and then still just targeting the websites. And we can see here this works really well for the French CPU market computer parts. In Germany, again, we've typed in gymwear for men, and we can see here that Gymshark with their subdomain is number 1, and then we can see that we've got another German, completely German country level domain name, another subdomain from Gold's Gym. Then Under Armour has set up their completely local German website here. ASOS is ranking with a directory in the top 5. Liftwear is ranking with a directory, and yeah, the other ones are also ranking with directories. So it's a very broad mix. That's why it's not really applicable to say you have to go with one or the other, because from the search results we can see that depending on how strong your brand is and how long you've invested into your SEO, it's possible to rank with either your subdomain, your country level domain name, or even with a subfolder, which is here with ASOS. They have the subfolder structure. If anything, we could say that looking at these, the subfolder seems to be less often used and less successful. Again, we can see here all country level domains, all country level in the top 2 sub directory. And then here we have kind of local / pretty much local URLs, because it's only one language on this domain name. So just looking at these search results, I would say the least successful here is the subdirectory, which was ironically what Shopify recommended. But I understand that's because it's a bit easier to implement on a Shopify store. You can still implement all other methods as well on Shopify. Like it's possible to even connect a completely other country's domain name to Shopify, or to use the subdomain way that Gymshark is using. But I would strongly recommend to check out the SERPs and see what's happening on your preferred search results. I've got a Chrome extension I want to share with you that I use for this. It's called SEO2, SEO SERP 2, and it basically allows you to extract the SERPs. This makes it a bit easier to copy and paste the whole search results. So that's a really helpful one, as well as this hreflang checker, which I can also highly recommend for international SEO. Now back to the domain types, there's actually a psychological factor that comes into play, and it's the reason why I prefer the local country level domain. I'll bold that here, this would be the .de version. And the factor that I want to mention is that this forces us to not do too much at the same time, because if you want to rank in competitive search results, it's very kind of attractive to go, okay, let's create all 15 or 20 languages, auto-translate them all, and then hope for the best, which is kind of a spray and pray SEO approach. And it's not going to work if you're in a competitive industry, because each country and each language needs SEO work done to it. So by choosing this country level domain approach, you now have a dedicated domain name for that, and you're actually forced to put in work because you know you're starting from scratch. And without building a proper brand in that country, the domain is never going to rank because it's essentially a completely new domain name. And that's why I prefer this approach, because it's very tempting to go with the folder structure approach, and then that language might get forgotten because on that same domain, you're still doing SEO for your main language. And the subfolder approach is, that a bit risky because the implementation there could be suboptimal, and the resource allocation is a really big thing to consider when you're doing international SEO. How many resources are you going to allocate to Germany, to France, and so on? And with this approach, where we can say, hey, let's just launch one website rather than doing all of the languages, or let's focus back to this list here where we have the countries. Let's only do Germany, France, and Italy maybe, and have a separate domain name for each of them, and then a separate SEO budget for all of them, which would need to be usually accompanied with local marketing campaigns as well. If you're an e-commerce store, at least, it would be good to get a local footprint as well, because that increases brand searches. If you can do radio ads, TV ads, other types of sponsorships, those types of things, that increases brand searches and increases the brand strength, which goes back to these CPU rankings here in Germany. These are 20-year-old brands that you can't simply outrank in Google search by creating a website and then just doing SEO for 6 months, even for a year. That's still not going to happen unless you have a strong investment in the brand in that country. All right, to summarize, we've got some first level principle thinking here. So what do we want to achieve? We want to sell stuff in another country. How are we going to do it? We're going to rank in Google. And how we're going to rank in Google? Well, we need to use the main ranking factors that competitors use in there to rank themselves. And usually in most countries or languages, the main ranking factors are the brand strength. So that includes branded searches, user signals, and we could put other things into brand strength like backlinks as well. But basically, I've put it here in a separate column. So backlinks also definitely feed the authority and trust of the brand strength, but just to have it here separately, and the content. And then on-page SEO in really competitive industries, the on-page SEO is not a differentiating factor. It's essentially everybody does on-page SEO, especially to their main category pages like gymwear for men. There's not going to be a single gymwear company who's got terrible on-page SEO there. And the top two factors I would say are brand strength and the backlinks. And that's one to consider when you're creating your international SEO strategy. Additionally, of course, you need lots of research to see what the local ranking factors are and why specific brands are ranking, because they can vary depending on industry and country. I hope this video was helpful to give you an idea about international SEO. And it's not as black and white as some people make it seem, that the folder structure is definitely the best, or the subdomain is the best, or local country. There are benefits to each of them, but just checking what works for competitors in search results and then choosing that option is a very good strategy. All right, I'll see you in the next video, and leave a comment below if you have any questions about international SEO. Thank you.